welcome to Mystics MMOs. I'm your host, Mr. Craven. Alright, so I got a little bit of time before I have to leave again. And I'm going to, of course, be leveling my tanks and everything else that I'm going to do. DPS. Actually, that would be kind of cool. Let me get on that, because I could definitely stand to level up my Dragoon. Now, as the title would indicate, I actually enjoy leveling up my jobs in Final Fantasy XIV tremendously, because the simple fact of it is, like most games, it has a progression system, right? And that's usually, like, you can grind out your tombstones to get your best in slot, or to further progress your main character or your main job or your main class. But in Final Fantasy XIV, one of the nice aspects is if you're not needing progression or tombstones, like, because there's a cap. I can only earn 900 of the top tier tombstones. So when I'm logging in and I'm doing the daily roulettes, if I'm capped, I can do what? Use these roulettes to level alternative jobs or alternative roles or classes without having to switch another tune. That's why I really like this aspect, because I don't have to log out of my tune to progress in another job. So I can literally have a tank, a healer, DPS, my crafters, all on one tune. And to me, that's amazing. You know, to be able to have that much accessibility without repeating, you know, the dreaded long MSQ or the initial MSQ. I'll be honest here. Like, the MSQ is drawn out. It is. It's a good story. It's really good once you start getting into it. But for new players, it is a little daunting. However, once you get into it, you're captivated into the plot or what's going on in the progression of the story. So it has its pros and it also has its cons. Especially when you're trying to progress, because everything's locked behind questing in Final Fantasy XIV, which sometimes puts off newer players. But to be honest with you, once you become accustomed to it, it's really not that bad. Now, one of the things I will say is, what do you do in between time? Because once you get to a certain point in your game, you're typically waiting for the new dungeons, the new storyline to continue progression. And that's where the alternate jobs come into play. That's where you get to decide, you know, what you're trying to do. Like, for me personally, I know with Shadowbringers around the corner, I'm not going to get to level as many jobs up front. So I'm going to have to isolate what I want to do moving forward into Shadowbringers. And for me personally, that's getting to the Gunbreaker, leveling that up, going into the MSQ, and sticking with 2 primary jobs. Actually, I'll have 3 because I'm going with Summoner. So I'll have the Scholar leveled up at the same time. So I have Summoner, Scholar, and my tank. So I'll have a healer, a tank, and a DPS. It's just easy. It functions a lot smoother that way. And I'm going to be able to get a lot more accomplished. Now, once I get through the MSQ, I get unlocked. I start getting into my raids. My raids are going to be weekly lockouts, right? So mainly I'm only going to be able to do my raid on a weekly occurrence. And that gives a lot of downtime. So what can I do? I can level my crafting, or I can level other jobs or other classes to fit roles that I might need in other instances or other scenarios, which I enjoy tremendously. So, while we're still waiting on Q. Now this, I'll be honest with you, it's been pretty busy. And like in the afternoons, there's been queue times, all sorts of stuff. My scroll wheel's been a little touchy lately. Alright. Now I'm also working on my irregular tombstones. I guess the Pegasus is hard to get. I wasn't interested in getting the Pegasus mount, but from my understanding, this is a harder mount to farm for. So it looks like I will obtain it, just to have it, I guess. But they do have this event. It's pretty good event currently. I'm probably also going to, if I have enough time, I might be trying to acquire some of these additional cards. So always coming in and checking out some people's outfits. It's kind of cool. Or lack of. There we go. Should be in a labyrinth. I don't think I'd hit a level 60 on a queue, but I might. Hoping it's one of the ones in the tower. Yes.
Before we go to our appointment, can we get something to drink? I don't have money enough yet.
You don't have money?
Yeah, because you.
I'm broke.
I gave you $5 yesterday. What happened to that?
Things called necessities. But anyways, can you...
No. It's cool.
I'm leaving. Looks good in here, don't you think, Alyssa?
Odin, come here. Is that mommy? Is that mommy? Odin! Odin! Come here! Odin! Come here.
Oh shit. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Maybe it was. Yeah, it was. It was muted. Chrissy, thank you so much. What's the best gear that you can craft for level 70? I could show you. So, let me switch my tune here. Look, the gear in here is pretty damn good. For, okay. So, for example, weapons. I want to say the heavy metal right here. No, that's not it. Is it the Dolman Longsword? Like, okay, for example, the weapon I'm wielding right now is 380. A 380 is the top currently for crafted. And I want to say that's across the board. 380. And max is 405 currently. So I want to say max, you can get your best in slot at 405 with your upgrades. So 380 score, and in your dailies you only need a 375 in expert. Want to say 360 for expert. So 360 score on expert and 380, which is pretty good. And I'm sorry, yeah, my mic was muted. Anyways, I apologize about that. So I was just saying, one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be fixated on staying with Final Fantasy XIV for PvE. I don't foresee myself, even if I go back to ESO, I can't see myself wanting to do anything in ESO, like as far as dungeons or trials or anything. They have an open-ended system, which I prefer, but the problem of it is, like, there's nothing that incentivizes the current system, right? And unfortunately, then you have to argue with players who really don't understand the numbers behind each of the classes in ESO and the relative passives. But PvP, once update 24 comes out, if I go back to ESO, if performance increases with update 24, I will go back to ESO, but it'll be for PvP only. Because this game's PvP isn't that good. The PvP in Final Fantasy XIV is struggling, in my opinion. Yes, it has a presence in e-games. I'm not, taking that away from Final Fantasy XIV. It does have a functionality. It has an objective. It has a good, unique system, but it's too strategized what you need to do to win. There's nothing that breaks away from that atypical strategy. And that's kill the healer and just everybody else falls like dominoes. It's so fixated that it takes the fun out of the game for PvP here. So if I go back to ESO, it would be for PvP. Now PvE, once again, I personally feel I'm in a good place for a PvE. I have a game that I never have to roll an ult. I can enjoy all the jobs. I can enjoy the story content. I can enjoy the trial content. I can enjoy the raid content. It gives me incentive. Yes, it's linear, and I much prefer a different type of system implemented, but no one can argue the facts of progression. No one can say this or that. And in Elder Scrolls, there are a lot of different when it's not definitive. The math doesn't allow it to be definitive. And because we have way more, the devs have more control into the progression system and which way you're going to go. I'm not a big fan of it, but as far as the content goes and the quality that's, delivered within the jobs and how you choose to progress, I do enjoy my time here from a PvE aspect. Fair enough. I think ESO should have hybrid class systems like Final Fantasy XIV. I actually like that idea, Chrissy. I actually do. I kind of see what direction you're pointing, and I actually agree with that. But the thing about it is, though, they'd have to come out with a system that would allow you to be able to save templates like you do in Final Fantasy XIV, and then implement those different loadouts and being able to utilize hybrid system management. And I think it's plausible. I think it is doable. But the question of it is, will they do it? That's the question. Like, it's completely plausible in ESO. Completely. But, once again, they're going to have to address the AA system initially, because the CP system is now working against the progression system. Because what ends up happening, they raise the ceiling cap, but then end up nerfing down they scale down the top end damage to keep content relevant to a certain degree, so it's not becoming, too easy in vet mode. So unfortunately, like a lot of people haven't noticed, as your CP is gaining, your base damage is actually keeps getting cut down. And unfortunately, players haven't picked up on that yet. So, well, some have, but not everybody. But I love where you're going with that, because it's a great way to do it. What you're saying is the greatest way to keep players, playing and building in the way that ESO is established. And I think that's an amazing opportunity that ZOS should be trying to take a hold of. And if they do that, then they could implement maybe a different system to incentivize besides fluff. But once again, that's going to be up to, the development team in whatever departments to try to figure all that out. And, we'll see. But I think the PvP in ESO is better than Final Fantasy XIV. So I'm just waiting for update 24. Performance goes there, I will go back to ESO for PvP. But for PvE, I'm sticking with Final Fantasy XIV all day, every day. I love the dungeons. I love the mechanics. I love the jobs. I love the fact that I can switch in and out very easy. It's completely, it gives me a freedom like a sandbox game typically does. That's why I like sandbox games. I have freedom. And in linear games, I hate like the format of like World of Warcraft, where you have to choose a class, and then if that class no longer fits because it's nerfed or it's ineffective, guess what you do? You re-roll an entire character from scratch. And I'm tired of doing that. And I think that's why a lot of World of Warcraft players and other gamers are coming to Final Fantasy XIV, because regardless of the MSQ, which is good but daunting, it offers the freedom to be able to switch out your job way more frequently. Yes, it lacks the customization that World of Warcraft or EverQuest had in some other games, because you can spec your class. You can make it unique. But because of its flexibility, you don't need to have that, because every job has its different approach. So a red mage isn't necessarily like a black mage. Black mages and red mages are different, but they have similarities. So if you like more hard-hitting stationary attacks, black mage is is your play style. But if you like a little more mobility at sacrificing a little bit less damage and being able to move in and out, then red mage is more your class. If you like pet-based classes and like dot implementation, then summoner's your class. So if you like more support, then you have your physical melee classes that also, because red mage has support, summoner has support, So there's a lot of different elements that go into deciding what you're going to main in this game. And if at any time you don't feel like that your playstyle is changing, you can change. I think if they kept it like Oblivion or Skyrim, where you build from scratch, it would make millions of opportunities. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the one thing I didn't like about ESO when I first started ESO. Elder Scrolls Online was the one game from the Elder Scrolls title that implemented a class system, and I really hated that. But at least they kept the classes true to the ESO universe, meaning you could do anything with that class within... you could play any role within the class system. So they had to give it a little bit of a theme park element because of the way the MMO genre works or associates because of the Holy Trinity. But at the same time, I felt that ESO's adaptation of the MMO genre within that universe bode well. It really worked in their benefit to do it the way they did it. However, they missed a couple key points fundamentally from a traditional MMOs. And that's within, implementing the combat system the way they did. Because casters do cast. That's the thing. Like, the problem in the beginning, and I feel like still there's some truth to it, to a degree in this point, is that Magic classes, they have to keep nerfing the base damage because they made everything instance based. There's no cast time associated or no GCD associated, and because of that, the casters have a little bit more, utility in comparable to their stamina counterpart. Stamina's advantage was supposed to always be never having to cast anything, but be limited to what? Utility. And unfortunately in ESO, it's that they lost that premise because of the combat system. So it was like, even in Oblivion and all of them, you remember drawing like your hands back to like start casting when you're spellcrafting in Oblivion and all that. You would remember that you would have to charge your spells. And unfortunately in ESO, they were like, you know what? Let's just make everything instant. No global cooldowns, no casting. It's just instant. But we'll throw a proc or two in there. And it's like, okay. So, just food for thought. It's amazing. I was like, ouch. But, it's not totally terrible, but at the same time, like I said, I don't feel like a caster. Like, I don't feel like a traditional, mage or, a sorcerer or, a priest. I don't feel that. I don't get that feeling in here. Like, I like the stamina-based content. I love the fast-paced content, but I don't feel the immersiveness of magic. Like, I don't feel like magic has this respect and fear component to it, the way the other titles have delivered. And that's what I want as a caster, because I want to be a caster. I want to, if I'm drawing in for a spell and it's going to be the biggest goddamn spell, it's going to do a tremendous amount of damage, but at a cost. It's going to have to cost me, that little upfront damage, or it's going to have to cost me in time. It's going to have to cost me in mana. There's association with casters when it comes to how powerful a spell can be. But unfortunately, I've never had that feeling in ESO. I'm like, okay, yeah, throw down my wall, weave, so. Anyways, I got to get going. I'm going to let you guys go. Chrissy, thank you for stopping in. Oren, thank you for stopping in. Hercules, thank you for stopping in. Let's pray. Let's keep our fingers crossed. Update 24 delivers the ZOS promise. Let's hope. I hope so, because I really need a PvP game, and I'm not stepping foot back until I get some confirmation. But but I'm staying here for PvE. No doubt, I'm happy. Until if it would, there would have to be, what would pull me away from Final Fantasy XIV right now? It would have to be an MMO that delivers this concept. I can play whatever I want on one tune. Square Enix would have to fucking botch up their content tremendously for me to leave now. They'd have to fuck it up on purpose. Or somebody would have to say, you know what? Let's implement a system where they never have to roll an ult and the races are insignificant. It's just, it's insignificant. Cool. Awesome. So if I want to be a race, it's not because it has an advantage of anything. It's just for cosmetics. Take notes, MMO companies. Take notes. All right. Once again, I'm gone. Thank you. Mr. Craven, Mystics MMOs. As always, have a nice day.